Hello and welcome. My name is Ron Herman. I'm the Dean of Fine Arts and Communication at Foothill College. Welcome to this exciting event, the Artist Talk with Judy Walgren. We're excited to welcome you here today because Judy is a brand new faculty member in photography. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning photojournalist, and she has an incredible exhibition that's on display right now in the Krause Center for Innovation. So for today, she's going to be giving us an overview of that work and an artist talk about the experience. Judy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Dean Herman. And I also want to thank our colleague, Kate Yordahl, for managing the Q&A and just being an overall awesome person like Ron. So again, thanks everybody for coming. We know it's a kind of a strange time for a lot of you, but at noon, this is called, well, I can't quite remember what this is called, but it's kind of college hour, I think, at Foothill College. And so traditionally there are events from noon to 1 on Wednesdays here. So that's why we chose this time. I really appreciate you taking the time to come. I'm going to now share my screen. I want to make sure that it works. Let's see. Is that looking okay? Can you see? Right. So and I'll start the slideshow now. So here we go. Looking okay? Thank you. All right, so today I really am excited to talk to you all about this notion of collaborative portraiture, which is a process of working with people, and it differs a great deal from how I was trained as a photojournalist per se, and the resulting exhibition is on display, as Dean Herman said, at the Krause Center for Innovation here at Foothill campus. So I call this collaborative portraiture, equity and representation. So my history with photojournalism is long, as many of you know, and representation is a big part of the area that I was uncomfortable with, I have to be honest. So I loved my career working as a photojournalist, and at the same time, you know, it's intersectional. I also had some issues along the way with questioning certain things, such as the exaltation of the myth of objectivity. I was always told that we had to be objective as a photojournalist, that we couldn't choose sides. And for me, it was more about trying to be fair and accurate and working with empathy. And that process didn't seem to align with this notion of working from an objective place at times. There was a kind of a unstated law in place that we could not have pre-approval of any images that we make by the people who we portrayed, which again, I always found a little bit problematic because I'm coming in and making a photograph, but what if that photograph doesn't resonate with how they see themselves or with the story that they've opened their lives up to be told? There was also significant lack of support for those working from a victim-centric and trauma-informed foundation, which I think a lot of us do as photojournalists. I think that we are very empathetic and centered on the people who we're photographing who have gone through significantly traumatic events. But there was lack of support for following a trauma-informed approach and also being victim or survivor-centric, however the person you're photographing chooses to identify. The visual media archive of people from marginalized and victimized and minoritized communities was significant and continues to be. However, we are definitely interrogating that now more than ever before. And when I would question these practices or these unstated laws or rules around journalism, I was chastised pretty, not severely, but strongly. And I still receive a lot of pushback today. So as I was watching and as I have watched different events unfold over the course of my time as a photojournalist, and a time in history that stands out for me most recently was the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think this really, this movement that came about because of murder, awful things that happened, really shook a lot of people to their core around the way the media has consistently and always, I believe, portrayed Black Americans, people who are Black, who are citizens of the United States. There are clear lack of images in the media archive of Black people in the US, basically in just enjoying everyday life, doing everyday things that bring us all joy, no matter what background we come from and no matter how we identify. But rather, images in the media of Black people often depict those who are experiencing harm, doing harm to themselves or others, and or are related to traumatic news events. And I will be the first one to say that I, in the late 80s and early 90s, was a photojournalist who was sent to cover very traumatic events that were affecting people of color around the world. And so I too, am responsible for making images that would be super one-sided and not holistic. And I remember covering the famine and the war in Somalia back in the early 90s. And after the Marines had come in and the US military had shown up, the editors at the outlet I was working for at the time wanted us to come home. Yet at the same time, the rains had come and they were starting to plant crops again, and we're actually starting to thrive again in this area in Somalia. And I really wanted to tell that story. And instead the plug was pulled, and they demanded that I return home, that was not a story that they considered news. But for me, it was a story that told more of a holistic and complete story. So I found, as I was doing my research for this talk, I found this quote by Vanessa Willoughby, and I really resonated with it, and I hope it resonates with you all as well. The Black experience does not begin and end with anguish, violence, and pain. However, mainstream media has yet to fully provide a multifaceted overview of Blackness. The privilege of representation involves gatekeepers, and these are the people who control these narratives that are on display in the media. And I appreciated that quote. So now what I'm seeing happening in a lot of the groups I'm involved in, and a lot of friends, and just on a lot of feeds in Instagram, are images that depict Black joy, which I'm super thrilled about, trying to fill in these gaps in the visual archive of people of color and people from marginalized communities. And there's even a book now by Cleaver Cruz called The Black Joy Project, and it is coming out in December. And so I, again, just thought I'd throw that out there. And if this is something that you're interested in, as I am, I just wanted to give them a shout out. So then it brings me back to why survivors, why was I drawn to this topic, which is the group of people I focused on for the exhibition at the Kraft Center for Innovation. So, because, right, 1 in 5 women are in fact survivors in the United States, which is a formidable piece of data. So that would be the first thing. My work has always been connected to social justice, and maybe more specifically, support and trying to provide some type of knowledge and just information on the amount of abuse and violence that women face around the world, human rights abuses against women, and more specifically, even than that, violent human rights abuses. So to continue, similar to representation of any marginalized community in the US, the media, people who have survived sexual violence have also been portrayed only in moments of anguish and trauma, or while reflecting on these times. So whenever we were doing stories on people who had been abused, who had been, survivors of domestic violence, there's always this kind of sense of sadness and defeat and becoming victimized, et cetera, which is in fact not a lie, right? These things have happened. And furthermore, photographing the moments are usually quite powerful because of the intense emotion they capture. So going back to the media, we had usually one photo that would portray the whole story, and it needed to really capture the intensity of the motion. And again, I want to reiterate, that is in fact not a lie per se. As a photojournalist, we are trained to center on these moments of intense emotional response, because this is what the world is looking for. This is what the world of media is looking for. They're looking for an image that is going to encapsulate the whole story in one frame. And as I've gotten older and more experienced, I just realize over and over, just like identity, right? We are intersectional. One story cannot be told in one frame. And that's the beauty of where we are right now in digital media, because you no longer have to rely on the image to be printed in a newspaper on print, right? Which costs a lot of money. We now have that opportunity to have as many images as we want published. We should be selective about that, I will say. So survivors, back to why, right? I was offered a full-time position at MSU exactly on the same day that this $500 million settlement for the survivors was announced. The MSU is Michigan State University. It was the school at the time in 2018 in May, where 529 people had come forward to say that they had been sexually abused by a monster who was an osteopathic doctor who had been allowed to continue to do this for literally decades. And no one believed them. So as I was researching MSU, trying to decide if I was going to go or not to become a member of the School of Journalism, this stuff started to emerge. And as I did my research, this is what I found. Grid after grid after grid. It was just absolutely phenomenal. So this is what I saw, right? Grid after grid of these courageous people confronting their abuser in court during his sentencing. It was a very powerful time where the judge opened the courtroom doors and allowed anyone who wanted to come down and confront him to do that. She kept it going on for a very long time. And subsequently, because there were cameras in the courtroom, these images were captured. They are super powerful. Like, in no way am I trying to say that this is a necessarily a bad thing, but once they're made and they're put into this archive, right, all of a sudden these grids start to form. The media is trying to really show the number of people who were abused, who are saying that they were abused, and trying to create this this information in a way that will read very quickly to the audience. But then the grids, they just kept going. And then there are more grids. And again, I understand why the media was doing this. And I also started to feel very frustrated, because these are each individual human beings with their own unique story about what happened to them. Granted, there were well over 500 people and their stories attached to this monster. But it made me feel sad at how I felt genericized almost, and the images were being exploited just to kind of accentuate the number. And they all showed intense emotion, right? So like first you'd have grids of intense emotion, and then you would have these larger caught moments, right? Showing emotion, which again, these are very powerful images. Of people who had endured great trauma and had great courage as well, right? For having the courage to come to court. I mean, Rachel Denholler is the one that basically sent the letter to USA Today and got the whole ball rolling after 30 years. It was day after day of this. And then, one day, one of the fathers just literally jumped out of the crowd and went to attack Nasser. You can see Nasser like ducking in the bottom right through the leg of the bailiff. It was just constant. Moving on, the next group of images that came were of people dressed in white in huge grids and group shots and no names attached. So this is what I found, right? This Glamour magazine article, again, right? Like Glamour magazine is no little deal. It's a big deal to have your story in Glamour magazine. And there were over 500 people. I just always want to acknowledge this. I understand what they're trying to do, but for me, it just became more and more frustrating. So the words are saying these brave girls are saying we matter, we're a force, but the way they're gridded to me, and then let's just talk for 5 seconds about the color white. That very much put me off, because white has all of this connotation of innocence and childhood and things like that. I mean, these are courageous women who stood up against a monster in a courtroom in front of cameras. So I don't know, white just left me feeling very queasy, and I've been able to talk to a number of the people who were portrayed in this, and they agreed with me at the end of the day. Most of them did, not all of them, and that's fine. I'm not a survivor of this group, and it's just a thought that I had, and it was really, for me, quite powerful to be able to go back and talk about this with some of the survivors who are now my very good friends. So then inside, there are more grids, more group shots, right? So generic, no names of people standing, very powerful, looking more powerful because now they're standing, they're not just mug shots. But then as I kept looking, right, the people who were the defense team and the judge were dressed in the power colors of blue, as in like a police uniform, and black with their names attached. I mean, Judge Rosemarie Aquilina is a hero, right? I mean, she's definitely a hero. Very different body language, very different posture, and definitely, the color black connotes power here, I would say. We've got the dream team here of the assistant DA, Angela Povolatis, and Andrea Mumford, who is, Andrea really, is just a hero as well. And they both use this victim-centric, trauma-informed approach in their work, which made them very different than other people who had looked into the case. So Andrea is the one that found that basically got Nasser to admit to some of the abuse and took it all the way. So I was continuing to research, and I was looking at, I think it was Rolling Stone, and it was around the Bill Cosby incidents, plural, and the people who survived that situation. And the photographer had them all wear black. The poses seem a little stiff to me to some degree, but I was struck by how the color black related back to that color white and this compare and contrast. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of what I was thinking. And as I continue to look through the images, because I tend to do this obsessively on Google, the next group of photos I found on these courageous people were of them on stage at the ESPY Awards. So we're going from, trauma in the courtroom to, somber, gridded images and large group shots wearing white to, dressed in like literally, evening wear on a stage being exalted. So trauma to exaltation is kind of how I think about this. And the awards they received were phenomenal. They're beautiful. There were hundreds of them given out. again, not trying to in any way denigrate the fact that they won this award. It was really very powerful. And the video you can find on YouTube is quite powerful. Sorry. But it's a very different feel than what I'd seen before. And so I started asking, like, what are these images saying? Like, what is the visual rhetoric behind what is happening in these images? Is everything okay now? Is the ending indeed happy? And we know that can't be the case. Like, it can't be the case with 530 some more people. What comes next after they come off the stage? And so now I'm going to explain this, right, through a book that I co-edited with my friend and co-author, Extine Burrow. I wish she was my author. She's a great writer. We published a book at the same time, while I was at MSU and making the photographs, called Art as Social Practice. And that's how I started thinking about this work, which again was a big departure from my work as a journalist and how I thought about it. So this is the chapter. It's chapter 8. And please let me know if you're interested. And I've got a few copies at home. I'd love to share them. It's moving. There we go. Wait, sorry. Okay, so here is the process. So I'm at MSU. I'm thinking we got to start filling in the gaps in this visual archive. I mean, I would really love to do that. I didn't know if they wanted to do that. This was an idea in my head, and I needed to figure out if what I was indeed feeling was actually the case, that the archive was not giving a holistic view of these amazing, courageous people in their lives, right? And so I was able to get introductions to the survivor community through a Facebook feed with my friend Louise Harder, who was in fact one of the survivors. They did a big post on the Facebook feed, and then the people who responded back to me, we started off with an initial phone call, right, to discuss whether or not the project was indeed a good fit for them. What I was thinking in my mind was, how could I help you portray yourself in a way that you would like the world to see you, that fits in somewhere in between being completely traumatized and exalted? Where are you on this spectrum? Or where do you want the world to see you? What do you want to say to the world? And that's the collaboration, part of the collaboration part. And to be honest, some people really, after they heard about it, they're like, okay, no thanks, bye. And I'm like, totally cool with that. Other people were like, well, I really don't feel like having, a photo made for an exhibition, but I need a new LinkedIn photograph. And I haven't had one since this happened to me because I haven't felt beautiful. I haven't felt like I deserved to have a photograph made of me. And so just that process of having a photograph made of them was a healing process for them. So we decided together on the theme, right? Is this going to be a LinkedIn photo? Is this going to be a photo of your family that you want, but you don't want exhibited? Or is this a photograph that you really want to have exhibited, right? And again, trying to articulate something of themselves. And they came up with this, victim goddess trope, which I thought was really fantastic and does explain how I was feeling. We discussed the approaches, and then we decided on a shoot date, time, and location. And then we would meet, go over the contract and the model release, really, which basically said that I had to ask for permission anytime the photos were used. And the model release stipulated that they had the right to use the photograph for whatever they wanted to at any time without asking me. And then I needed to ask them if I could use it anytime I wanted to publish or exhibit their images, unless they stipulated otherwise. Like, I just want a LinkedIn photo. I also shared copyright with them, as well, as I state, I think, in the 4th bullet, but nobody really cared about that. For me, it was a big deal because I'm a freelance photographer. So I might not keep going with that in the future, but I'll ask for sure. So we would shoot the images, stop, they would look, shoot more, stop, they would look with me, we would talk about it. Is this working? Is this not working? We would decide together on 1 or 2 images that I could use for publication and exhibitions. And then I've also had a couple of people come back to me and say, you know what, this isn't how I see myself anymore. I'd like to add to the archive. I would like to add another photograph, a different pose. And so that's happened 3 times now. And I'm always really excited that they want to come back and continue. And this is what we ended up with. Sorry, let me click on this real quick. All right, so this is Ashley. I made this in 2019. She is in love with Disneyland, and this is what she wanted to be photographed wearing, the Minnie Mouse ears in the children's garden at MSU. This was her idea, her pose, everything was hers. I was just there to photograph her. Sorry. This is Louise and Cindy. They wanted to be photographed together because Louise's mom, Cindy, was in the room when Louise was being abused, and the way that he would work would hide that from their moms, and the kids were too young to really know, or from their parents, what was going on. And so there was a great deal of trauma there, not only with Louise, but also with Cindy. And they are 2 amazing. All these people are amazing, but I adore both of them. They're very good friends of mine now. This is Mimi. She was super young when her abuse went down, and her mother, Colleen, is incredible. When Mimi heard about the project, she wanted to do it, and her mom actually allowed her to do it. She was 13 years old. And she took some grief from people for allowing her daughter to be photographed. But Colleen felt very, very assuredly that this was the right thing for Mimi. And Mimi felt like it was the right thing for her. And again, just super, super courageous and super fierce. That's how Mimi wanted to look. She wanted to look fierce in the gym. To show that this did not stop her, and she's still involved in gymnastics today. Oops, there's Ashley. Whoops. This is Amanda. Had a different experience with getting back on the beam, and that's how she wanted to be photographed. She wanted to be back on the beam, but there was definitely a timidness there. This is Alexandra, who made this incredible dress that's now in the holdings of the MSU Museum, where it's been on display. It's a dress of 100 butterflies. This survivor Jade wanted to be photographed dancing with joy. A mom and her daughter, just going through the checkups that she had to go through while she was pregnant was super traumatic for her. But having her daughter, she said, at the end of the day, has really helped her move through a lot of the trauma she experienced. Some people are still experiencing trauma today. And some people I've lost touch with and I can't seem to locate anymore. A lot of the survivors were given therapy dogs as part of the settlement, a lot of them were donated dogs. And so this is Grace's dog. And she really wanted to be photographed with him. This survivor wanted to be photographed as a total badass in red lipstick and a red shirt. And I think she succeeded in that endeavor. I like how she's arching her eyebrow. I could never do that. Well, she did it, no problem. She looked like, I don't even know, Charlie's Angels. This is Caitlin, and this was her first pose. that she did. And when we were done with this, she asked me to come back and photograph her thigh as well, where she had cut herself. And she wanted that photograph to be next to the Courage bracelet that many of them received, that was made in gold and it had a diamond in it. She felt it was important to document that. This is a person that came much later after the initial group, who I photographed in Southern Michigan, who approached us well after the project had been exhibited already once at MSU. And this painter, she is brilliant, as they all are. She was painting about her experiences there with the abuser, and actually came later as well. She came to one of the panel discussions about the work and about the journalists who worked on this story, and afterwards approached the organizer of the panel to let them know that she in fact was also a survivor, and then wanted to get in touch. And so we made this portrait of her. And this is a detail of the floor in her studio, which I just thought exemplified just a lot of different things, right? Chaos, artistic process, color, and just the messiness of after, what comes after. And in the book, I won't go over this, but in the book, after each chapter, and this is my chapter that I wrote about this process, we also provide artist prompts for an artist, or prompts for teachers to use in class if you're interested in working as an artist in social practice, or you're teaching classes in social practice art. So I just thought I would include a snapshot of that for the heck of it, but I won't take up the time to read them all. So ultimately, I'm really now super centered on this mantra, which is always aim for being fair and accurate, not being first and the clickiest. And that's the way I live. That's the way I like to support people who I work with, approach their work. It's how I like to suggest that students work. And it seems to be the right way right now, but I'm also open to amending it at any time, right? And so some of the things that I've learned are watch out for this victim goddess stereotyping that the media very much likes to do. Interrogate and question the notion of objectivity in journalistic content production always. Make it okay to use collaborative portraiture as one of the ways to create a more holistic approach to journalistic representation. I think if we showed our work to the people who were photographing, we would get the feedback that would help us create more fair and accurate photographs and even video of the people we're working with. Build a more holistic and accurate visual archive by filling in the gaps left by these gatekeepers. Allow people to identify as they wish. This goes for not only photographers, but reporters, right? So if someone wants to be a victim, then you identify them as a victim. If someone says, I want to be a survivor, not a victim, let them be, referred to as a survivor. This was a big, I got into an argument with someone once in a panel about this, because they were like, oh, calling them a survivor isn't objective. We have this firm rule that you have to call them a victim, which made no sense to me. And it's never going to, it's never going to make sense. And I let that person know that. Stop identifying survivors constantly in connection with the name of the abusers over and over. So go from Nasser victim, Mimi, blah, 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 to Mimi, who was abused by the infamous MSU osteopath, which is how I referred to it, because it was, when you have 529 people, you can't put all of their names, right? And I don't know, there's got to be a way to do that where we're not constantly linking these courageous people to the name of the person who abused them. And publish powerful and emotional images along with those that tell a holistic story as possible. Again, Give yourself the space and time to be able to make more than one storytelling image. Just do it. Accuracy is important, as important as impact. So as photojournalists, we are traumatized just in the course of our work. And a lot of times, and even I totally had the same experience, that things that were more nuanced and subtle would not jump to my eye anymore because of the things that I've witnessed and been exposed to. So it's really important to like cleanse your visual palette when you have time and really think about that. Take time off, which is very hard for a lot of us because we feel like there's not enough days in the year, not enough hours in the day to tell all the stories out there. And I put this photograph in here because, as we know, this is a Dorothea Lange, the most famous image probably ever made. And this could have been a really subtle moment. And if you look at the contact sheet in the Library of Congress, you can see that it was. But, she saw this person. She wasn't just looking at her, she saw her and really was able to in a nuanced way, capture the emotion from this mother and her kids. And I'm going to end quickly here with just a little comment about a book I'm writing with co-author Tara Pixley called Critical Photojournalism. So we're actually incorporating a lot of the things that I just spoke about here into this book that will be published by Routledge in early 2025. So if you're interested in new and different ways and more equitable ways to approach your work as a photojournalist, or how we're trying to support others to do that, please check it out. It'll be, again, out by Routledge Press in early 2025. This is some of the content. We have lots of great interviews. We have tons of amazing photos. We're going to talk about best business practices. We'll also have teaching and learning prompts. And we have a lot of photo editors and people who are well known for doing powerful portfolio reviews, giving us their secrets of how to put together a powerful and equitable portfolio. All right, well, that's what I got. Hope y'all have some questions. I'm going to quickly put this up here. Scan this QR code and join us at Foothill College. Join Kate and I, and Ron's the dean. He's also another amazing photo faculty member. He's still teaching a class on photography in the Americas. It's Photo 8. So scan this and go to our site, check out what we have offered in the winter. And we really look forward to seeing you all in class or just on campus, because Foothill is open for business. Let me stop sharing.
So much, Judy.
Oh yeah, thank you, Kate.
So we have a couple questions. So starting out, are you still interested in creating these collaborative images with victims and survivors? And if yes, how would someone contact you to be photographed?
Okay, so if you could put my email in there, that would be great, or I'll try to do it here.
I can do it in the chat. That's fine.
Okay, yeah. Just shoot me an email.
Foothill email, right?
Yeah, shoot me an email through the Foothill email that Kate's going to add. I'm definitely still working on this project, and I had someone come in today who had just been to the show this morning, and we're setting up a time for next week. I'm also going to be, let's see, Kate, I think that went into the chat.
No, it should have gone into the chat because that's where people can see it.
Oh, cool.
So
and then I'm also going to be working with our amazing students in our Disability Resource Center as well here, hopefully in the winter, to see if they want to somehow create collaborative portraits to tell the world something more about them other than what their IEP says about them.
So where do you get your ideas? Can you share something, as certainly some of the people who are here or are going to watch this recording hope to also tell stories, important stories. And so what is the spark that tells you that the story is the one you should follow?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a really interesting story by Tom Waits about how, this is such a funny story, about how the idea came to him while he was driving. And he was like, I can't stop right now. I'm too busy. And he kept driving. And then he said, like 2 months later, Leonard Cohen came out with the idea. So I tend to feel like the ideas, they strike me in weird times. And sometimes they do that same thing where they go whoop and out. And sometimes for some reason I go, okay, I'm going to grab your toe. I'm going to pull you on in and let's try. The major thing that I'm actually just figuring out now, I wish I had figured it out a little bit later, is that it's really critical to provide yourself space and time to be. I tend to do too much stuff because I love life and I love the world, which is a good thing. But what I don't do enough of is giving myself time and space to be able to let those ideas come in and to be able to grab them by the toe and say, hey, what about you? So everybody's got 5,000 stories within them. And, I'm just super curious and I love to tell stories and I need to provide myself more space. How about that?
Very good. I also invite everyone to come by Gallery 6100, which is in building 6100, and it has open hours, which I don't recall off the top of my head, but if you contact Judy or I, or we will make sure you know them. And there we have some of Judy's earlier photojournalistic work, which really is I think an important balancing to other things that she's done and to the range of how she approaches stories and shares these stories with the world. And just a really moving show, Judy. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thanks so much for all your help to get it. And thanks for everybody who came out. It was a wonderful experience, I think.
So any other questions in the group or anything else anyone wants to comment on? Oh, I did get, okay. And Lori's saying thank you for the wonderful talk and resonates. And so we'll share this one with you and some things on a link and everything. Let's see if there's a question. What can be done in practical ways to change that, especially for those that aren't such amazing and well-known photographers? Given the pervasive of attitudes about trauma and victims and others, both within and beyond our own society, and about the need to pursue and profitability of sensational and dramatic. What can we do even if we aren't necessarily famous journalists?
Listen and believe, right? Believe survivors. I think that's the biggest thing that everyone said, right? Like, I don't know if that is I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but what I heard is, what can I do? Listen,
Right.
Listen and believe, right? I mean, people knew he was doing this back in 1996 and they didn't believe them. They did not believe Rachel Denholler. They did not believe Amanda Tomashaw, right? They didn't believe them.
It's interesting because Judy and I were talking yesterday about, some of you have taken my photo 5 and the centerpiece, my module of my father, who was a photojournalist and photographing everyday people, and how that there is that need for stories to be told in our own lives and in our local lives. And I think I think with our photojournalism classes and our photo 5 classes, we really encourage people to look for those stories, and that we can have that impact in our own circle and in our own communities. And that needs to be done too. That's the building blocks of real journalism.
Yeah, that's beautifully framed, Kate. I mean, the other thing that's so interesting for me too is that a lot of times students will come in and they'll be super afraid to photograph people. Oh no, I can't do this. And the bottom line is that really we all really want is to be seen. We want to be seen as heard. And that's the one thing they say around kids, right? If a child does not feel seen or heard, that's as traumatic as being abused. And so I always kind of defaulted towards, oh yeah, they probably want to be photographed, versus what I'm seeing now. And people are like, oh no, I can't bother them with that. But like, people really want to be seen and they want to tell their stories, whether that's verbally, visually, a little mix of both. Like, and what a privilege, right? What a life. It's kind of crazy that I've been paid for too many years, I would say now, to do this.
So one of the last comment is no question from Keith, but thank you, Judy, for presenting a brilliant analysis of media's portrayal from its start of coverage to the presumed end of the event, and for your creative response via your photographs in We Are Worth Everything. And I will echo that.
Oh, thanks.
Invite everybody to come to the panel discussion, have a chance to see the show again. And can you tell us a little bit about that panel discussion, Judy?
Yeah, the panel discussion I'm so excited about. It's going to be November 16th from 5. The panel will probably go from 5 to 6:15, and then we'll spend the last 45 minutes or half an hour in the gallery. But it will be at the Krause Center for Innovation, which is on the campus of Foothill College, which yay. It's building 4000. So the gallery is in the bottom part near the Maker Center, which you'll see when you come, because you will all come. And then the artist talk, not the artist talk, the panel discussion will be in room 4006. And it will be with our incredible Dean of Students, Catalina Rodriguez, who is also the Title IX coordinator here. Because Title IX, the failure of people to really use Title IX was a major issue with the thing with the deal with Nassar. And so our Title IX coordinator, who is amazing, will be there to talk about what resources we have as a college around Title IX situations. We will also have an incredible student reporter from the Stanford Daily, who through her work with her colleague Georgia, found out about a Professor Barletta, who was apparently has been sexually harassing students for years, and is, I believe, I'm not sure is still there, but I know their reporting opened up an investigation around what's been happening around him. And then we have an incredible advocate for the YWCA Golden Gate Silicon Valley to talk about community support for survivors. So if something doesn't fall under Title IX and you're a student, there is ample and very robust support for you in the community as well. So we'll have information for everybody, an inspiring student story about student journalism, and I'll be facilitating that. And I think there'll be a lot of opportunity for great questions and learnings as well. Is that a word, learnings? Oh my God, sorry.
It is now. I've put the panel discussion, and I'm also putting Gallery 6100 in the chat. And contact myself or Judy if you need more information about these events or other things happening with Foothill Photography. And thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Looking forward to being in touch. And thanks a lot, Dean Herman and Kay Yordle. Have a great day, everybody. And see you in Photo 5 in 5 minutes. Bye.